There was a time when engineers believed anything was possible. A time when the car wasn't just a machine, it was a canvas for ambition, for risk, for strange, beautiful ideas. Some of those ideas were brilliant, others, not so much. Welcome back to part 2 of our journey through the dangerous and sometimes ridiculous features of old cars. Last time, we looked inside the cabin. Today, we step outside and look at the mechanical oddities, failed experiments, and wild designs that once defined the future before they were left in the past. Water-filled bumpers. In the 1960s and 70s, manufacturers were desperate to soften crash impacts. One strange solution? Fill the bumpers with water. That's right. A few concept cars like the 1973 Volvo VESC used rubber or plastic chambers, literally filled with fluid. The idea? Water absorbs energy, so in a crash, it should cushion the blow. In practice, they burst, they leak, and after one impact, you were on your own. It was a safety feature, with a tendency to spring a leak under pressure. The wrist twist steering system. In 1965, Ford's Mercury division tried something futuristic. They replaced the steering wheel with 2 small, rotating dials. They called it the wrist twist. It looked like motorcycle handlebars, or maybe something from the Jetsons. The goal was to clear the driver's view and offer more control, but drivers found it confusing. There was no feedback, no sense of resistance, and no muscle memory to rely on. In test drives, most people couldn't stay in a straight line. It never made it past the prototype stage. A steering system from the future that no one in the present could figure out. Pop-out windshields. The Tucker 48. The Tucker 48, designed in 1948, had one of the boldest safety ideas ever. A windshield designed to pop out during a collision, giving passengers an easy escape. But here's the catch. Instead of helping you escape, it sometimes launched you. With no seatbelts back then, a crash could eject you like a cannonball through that handy exit hatch. What was meant to save you could actually launch you hard. It's one of the many reasons modern windshields are laminated and meant to stay in place. The Ford Pinto fuel tank disaster. The Ford Pinto, a small, affordable car introduced in 1971. It sold well, but it carried a secret. The fuel tank was placed behind the rear axle, just 6-8 inches from the bumper. In a low-speed rear-end collision, it could rupture and explode. By 1977, at least 27 people had died in fiery Pinto crashes. Internal memos revealed Ford knew the flaw, but estimated it would cost $11 per vehicle to fix, and decided not to. This wasn't just bad engineering. It was a dark lesson in corporate calculus. The Pinto wasn't just hot. It redefined the meaning of fire hazard. No crumple zones. For decades, cars were built like tanks. Solid steel frames. Sounded safe, right? But it wasn't. When a car doesn't absorb energy, your body does. It wasn't until the 1970s that engineers began to design crumple zones, sections of the car meant to deform in a crash and soak up the impact. The first production car with crumple zones? The 1959 Mercedes-Benz W111. But in America, the idea took much longer to catch on. Turns out, the safest car isn't the one that wins a fight with a wall, but the one smart enough to lose it. No anti-lock brakes, ABS. ABS is now standard, but for most of car history, braking meant one thing: lock, skid, hope. Anti-lock braking came from aviation tech and first appeared in cars like the 1971 Chrysler Imperial and the 1978 Mercedes S-Class. But it wasn't until the 1990s that ABS became common on mainstream vehicles. Before that, drivers had to pump the brakes manually, to avoid skidding out of control. No computers, just panic and prayer. Hood ornaments. For years, hood ornaments were symbols of elegance. Jaguar had the leaping cat. Rolls-Royce had the spirit of ecstasy. But to pedestrians, they were metal spears mounted at shin height. By the late 1970s, countries like the US and Germany began regulating their height and impact resistance. Many brands switched to retractable ornaments, and eventually, most disappeared altogether. A beautiful, gleaming era, retired for safety's sake. Looking back, these features seem ridiculous, but they weren't jokes. They were serious efforts, driven by ambition, imagination, and sometimes desperation. Every seatbelt, every airbag, every crumple zone we have today was built on the lessons learned from these failures. Which of these strange inventions surprised you the most? Have you ever driven a car with a hood ornament? Or one without ABS? Tell us your stories in the comments. We'd love to hear them. And if this trip into the wild side of auto history fascinated you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us in Part 3, where we explore even more myths, machines, and mechanical misfires from the golden age of the automobile.